and we're interviewing you today here in the Center for Islamic Counseling and Guidance. I just want to know, what is your role here in this organization?
I'm an extra. Whatever they tell me to do, I do it.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I'm a very versatile person, and I think there has been a lot of experience.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, I like to think I'm a pretty industrious person.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I'm a hard worker.
Right.
So when they say, well, we need to teach a class tomorrow on whatever, then, you know, I'll just prepare myself and I'll do it. We have our seminar convention, and they say, we need you to teach this subject. I'll do a little preparation and I'll do it. So whatever I'm needed to do, that's what I do. But basically, we have classes, we have ongoing seminars, and then we have classes. Our regular scheduled classes on the weekend. And we would deal with subjects on marriage and divorce, mm-hmm. More than anything else, mm-hmm. and child rearing and communications and all the things that affect those
Well, as
broader
we're talking
topics.
about Islam in America,
Yeah.
I mean, what is the situation of marriage and divorce here in the Muslim community?
It is precipitously higher. You know, before we were very pleased with the fact that there wasn't a lot of divorce in Islam. Mm-hmm. We didn't have a lot of problems with our children that were prevalent in the society. Mm-hmm. But association breeds assimilation, and there has been a lot of assimilation, excuse me, especially in cases where you don't have a lot of education. Mm-hmm. So those things are occurring a lot more. And one of the problems I see, and I don't really like to harp on problems, one of the challenges that we have here in North America, and this is pretty much nationwide, is a matter of organization. Mm-hmm. You see, we don't have an official standard, mm-hmm. for masajid or a'imma. Mm-hmm. Anybody could be an imam. Right. Anybody can perform a marriage. Mm-hmm. And so we don't have those institutionalized regulations. Mm-hmm. And I'm not for heavy institutionalization, but some things have to be regimented and institutionalized, mm-hmm. you see.
But just to elaborate on the point, what is the role of the imam here in America? Because in some other countries, the role of the imam might be different than the role of the imam here in America.
I might not be the best person to ask, because I have to be very blunt and mm-hmm. frank about that. Right. I don't like the way imams are treated in America, mm-hmm. by and large. Mm-hmm. The imam is just a figurehead. One imam who is from an Asian country, Hafiz, Mutamakkin. Mm-hmm. He's real Hafiz. Mm-hmm. And he's a knowledgeable person. I was talking with him a couple of weeks ago, and he said that he was leaving the masjid. Mm-hmm. And he said Allah had blessed him that his business he had on the side is now paying him as much as the masjid is paying him. So the money's not a problem. Excuse me. And what really was the catalyst for his making this decision, mm-hmm. was the fact that he has to report to a board member now if he's not going to be present to lead a particular prayer, any particular prayer of the 5 prayers. Mm-hmm. And the imam leads all the 5 prayers. Mm-hmm. He teaches in the school. He handles all of the issues, the problems. He takes out the trash. Mm-hmm. He cleans up, he vacuums the floor. He does everything. Mm-hmm. Because he's a poor person who needs money, and the board has the money, so the golden rule applies, who has the gold rules. Mm-hmm. But he said that the reason he was leaving now is because if he's not going to be there for a prayer, he has to call and report. Mm-hmm. The person he reports to doesn't pray. Mm-hmm. Doesn't pray. Mm-hmm. But he has to report that he's not going to be able to lead that prayer. Mm-hmm. SubhanAllah. And this is too often what you find. Mm-hmm. Sheikh, Hafiz, Muhaddith, mm-hmm. Doctor. Mm-hmm. We respect doctor in America. You know, right. You're doctor, you're somebody. Mm-hmm. He's been Hafiz from a child, mm-hmm. has produced many hufaz. Mm-hmm. But the school he's in charge of, the board is in charge of the school. Mm-hmm. They have mashura and decide how the school is going to operate and come and tell him. Mm-hmm. But he has no voice in right. those decisions. Right. And he said, you know, if I went to the doctor's office or the engineer's firm and I said, why don't you move this chair over there? They would say, Sheikh, what do you know about these things? You know, you're email. Right. So, you know, there's no standard. Mm-hmm. And too often the board runs everything, and the board does not always have the best interest of the people at heart. Mm-hmm. There are people who have some funds, resources, and they want to control something. Mm-hmm. You see, The imam is supposed to be the leader. He's supposed to be consulted. His word is supposed to mean something.
Right.
But because he's a poor person who needs some money, it means nothing.
All right, all right. But let me ask you, brother, you work in the prison system here in America?
Yes.
Okay, just give us an overview of what the dynamics of Islam in prison. And I often address a misconception. People think Muslim people are just going to jail, practicing Islam in jail. You know, I just want to know from you, what do you find is actually the case of Islam in the prison systems here in America?
Quite a while ago, that was very seldom the case that you had Muslims going to jail practicing Islam. Now you're having more and more Muslims coming into the system. A part of it is the war on terror. And part of it is assimilation and a lack of education and a lack of opportunities for Muslim youth to have constructive involvement, so they're getting into trouble with other people.
Can you just expound a little bit when you say assimilation? You know, what do you mean exactly?
Meaning that living amongst a lot of people who are not Muslims, you have a tendency to take on their ways. And so the youth, when the youth are growing into adulthood, if they don't have an Islamic framework, a structured lifestyle within the Islamic context to grow in, then they grow in the context of whatever is prevalent in their area. And that's very haphazard. It's a hit and miss system. I mean, there are no guarantees, but if you are associated, el-maru ala dini khalidihi falyanzur ahadukum man yukhalil. You know, the individual will be
on the deen of his friend.
On the deen of his friend. You know, birds of a feather, of a feather flock together. You will be like those who you are amongst, who you spend your time with. So that everyone be careful who they intermingle with. You see, so there have been many of the young kids who have been with their non-Muslim friends, and they engaged in activities that are very un-Islamic. You see, very un-Islamic, and they have been criminal in many cases. But inside the prisons, that is the minority. That is the minority. The majority of the people in the prisons have actually accepted Islam, and those numbers of conversions have really been constant over the last couple of decades, more so than not.
But the dynamic of Islam in the prison, I think in the prisons everybody has to belong somewhere, you know. So the people, when they become Muslim, they belong to the Muslims. But what are the other alternatives they have to belong to in prison? And do you find the people who are becoming Muslim in prison is because they're embracing the religion of Islam, or they're embracing that group of Muslims over there?
Both, yeah, both. Let me give you one case in point. There's a guy from Panama. He was an Olympic boxer, but he was womanizer, drinker, smoker. You know, he did everything else too. And he got caught up into this scheme, and he went to jail. So he was in jail, and one of his friends came to me one day and said he wanted to be a Muslim. And so I always asked him, I said, what is a Muslim? What is Islam? Do you know what Islam is? It has 5 pillars. Do you know what they are? It has 6 articles of faith. Do you know what they are? If they know, then I ask them to tell me, and just see a little bit about their understanding of these things. And then if they don't, I tell them what the 5 pillars are, and I explain to them the 6 articles of faith. You see, so I asked this guy, do you know what Islam is? He said, no. I said, do you know the 5 pillars? No. You know the articles? No. I said, how do you know you want to be a Muslim? He said, I see this man. I know what he was. I want to be like that. If it can do that for him, it can do it for me. And that's all his character, you know, spoke volumes. And so that was enough for his friend to say he wanted that too.
And you find it's a lot, I mean,
that happens.
That's a majority of the cases in the prison? I mean, do the Muslims in the prison system, do they carry themselves a bit different than the other prisoners?
Yes. Yes, I have to say yes, but it's not. Yes. Let me say this though. We talk about recidivism, for example.
Right.
The recidivism rate is very high, and it's lowest amongst people who